Welcome to the Making of Me podcast, where we explore the defining moments and tough journey that shape who we have become. Today, we are joined by Mark Burnett, entrepreneur and founder of EPDI, and my brain restore, who turned a personal neurological health battle into a mission to research and develop natural supplements approach to brain support. Mike, it's really a pleasure having you on the show.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure being here. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
yeah, thank you. So, Mike, what was some of the challenges that shaped you into who you are today?
Wow. It really started really back when I was in high school. I had actually attended a kind of a science kind of program and stuff like that. And I started really wanted to getting into veterinary medicine. My mom knew a veterinarian, so I went down and started working there and everything like that. And learned everything medical that you could do in the animal hospital world before, getting ready to get out of high school. But then I learned about computers. And they were just coming out. This is 1975. I'm 67 years old.
Yeah.
So give you a little perspective. So computers were just a terminal, green screen, letters, and a modem which you picked up and you heard the tones and you put it in a little acoustic coupler. And my school had gotten a computer. And I wanted to learn about it, but I wasn't allowed to. You had to be in a trigonometry or calculus to use the computer. And of course, I wasn't. We find that funny today. Every 14-year-old can hack into a government agency. But to do it, I had to go to the guidance counselor who had a computer, but she just had it covered. She didn't know how to use it. And I talked to my friend who was taking calculus, and he said, well, here's the passcode. And that's all I needed. So I'd go there, I'd skip other classes, and literally hook into the University of Maryland's mainframe and teach myself programming. And when I came out, I decided to go into programming and development instead of pursuing my biological career into being involved in veterinary medicine. And when I started my company, I didn't have college or anything like that. Programming was fairly new. And if you wanted to learn programming, you had to learn COBOL or Fortran. I'm like, those already seemed like dead languages to me.
Yeah.
I was like, why do I want to learn that? And I think Apple had just come out with what they called the Apple II. The Apple I was actually made of wood, which most people don't know, the outer frame of it. And the Apple II was an assembly line version. And I bought that, immediately took it apart and broke it because I needed to learn how it worked. And those are the things you do. You got to take the cover off and figure it out. That's why they made the Macintosh really hard to take apart. But the funny thing was that I picked up on it quickly. I didn't go to college. I started a company basically doing early not internet, but pre-web stuff. The internet was actually before the web. People don't realize that. The internet was there, but it wasn't. They didn't have what's called a GUI interface around it. It didn't have the pretty stuff you see today. And so I really got into it, and I started this little company saying we could do programming. And I started hiring misfits like me. And these misfits were people who hadn't gone to college, who hadn't learned programming, but they learned on their own, just like me. And they'd come in, they were young guys, for the most part, a couple girls. And they were all like, well, I know how to code. And we're like, okay, show us. Show us what you can do. And when they could show us, we'd hire them. And it didn't matter. Well, I don't have a degree. I don't care. I don't want someone with a degree. They'll know Fortran. We're not teaching Fortran. We're not in that. So part of it, when you get into a business or something like that, you really have to look like outside the box. Like some of your skilled workers may not be the people that went to school and learned all these other things. They may be someone else that you can teach or they learn on their own and they're amazing. Now, I'll tell you that these people that I hired were amazing. Not always amazing together. They got in fights all the time, which I had to referee. That was my job. Nothing like having programmers in the same room at the same time. So I learned how to do that. When you're in business, you really have to think outside the box. Just like anything you're doing, how do you improve it? How are you better than someone else? We were young in the business, but there was one thing we learned. And we learned it very well. I learned it very quickly. And that was if I had gone to any of these companies that we had actually done business with, and we're talking enormous companies we did work with, like the International Monetary Fund, Charles Schwab, America Online was one of our clients, just huge companies. If I had went to them and said I wanted a job, they'd say, well, let's look at your degree. But when you start a company, and we called it Application Programming and Development Inc., all 10 people were there, and they never asked for a degree because
Yeah.
we were a company called something that sounded correct. And they just would say, sure, guys, this is what we have. And I'd bring a couple of my really top coders with me, and we'd usually solve something for them free. Like, oh, well, here's your problem, blah, blah, blah. Let me show you this, blah, blah. And they'd go, oh, that's unbelievable. How much you guys charge? I don't know. What's your budget? I learned to start saying that. Okay. I learned right away was I'd say, I don't know, maybe 25,000 or 30,000. And they'd go, wow, we thought it was going to be 100,000.
Woo!
I was like, oh, I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot. I left money on the table, right? So you'll learn really quickly how to rephrase things. Like start off with, well, I don't know, we might be too expensive for you. What's your budget?
Mm.
Software was I don't know how to price it at that time. I don't know what it's going to cost. How many coders? What it would take? So software industry was actually in a state where it didn't have a price that anyone could, and still doesn't really, that you could put a finger on and say how long it's going to take to do X, Y, and Z. So when they'd say now, hey, well, we try not to go over 100,000. I said, that's good because we were thinking 95. I was still thinking, what, 30? As long as they give me a number and I beat it, that's all I needed to do. And so we would get these enormous jobs, huge jobs. And once we started building clients, we would just catapult one client off of another, because we'd go to one client and say, well, we just finished up a job for America Online. AOL, they're the big boys, and they're like, well, we're not as big as them. We can't afford that much. Don't worry about it. We finished that job. We're ready for some more. So we'd always comfort the customer and learn what they're willing to pay. And that way, as a business, you really learn how to price out your products. And our products were always based on two things. One was what the customer could bear, would be one way to think about it. But the other side was sometimes we had slack time where we didn't have other jobs we were working on. So we might drop our price some at that point and say, well, we do it for this. Because literally everybody's sitting around looking at each other and I'm paying them. So, as a business guy, you start to think that way. And in I retired from database programming, and I had gotten Parkinson's, which was really bad disease. I had gotten, I also had the gene for Alzheimer's, so I had 2 neurological diseases. So having this knowledge of business, even at 67, I was just like, I can, maybe there's something here. And I found something that would work on these type of neurological diseases. And I tested it on myself for 6 months because that's what you do. You learn programming, you spend your time coding before you go out and code for someone else, right? Same thing here. You become the guinea pig, but it was based on sound science that was out there on a natural product, but had to be made very special. So I had to figure out all those things first. But then when I started taking it, I started getting better. My memory improved. My Parkinson's literally just reversed itself from stage 3 to stage 1. My neurologist was happy, and I said, I'm not taking your medicine. I'm just taking this. And they're like, well, keep taking it. I didn't even know what it is, but it's working. So I ran in the Michael J. Fox, who's from Back to the Future. Michael J. Fox, his foundation. He had a running event, a marathon, and 6 months after taking that, I got a medal. At the end, I had it here. I don't know where it went off to. I won that. I won that medal, and I turned around and I said, I just got a medal for doing something that someone with stage 3 Parkinson's shouldn't be able to do. And other people around me were coming around going, how did you do that? We couldn't even keep up with you. And what medicine are you on? And I told them what I was taking, my own. And they said, can we get it? And I'm like, I don't have a label for the jar. I'm like, we don't care. So now, we have a nice, beautiful label for the jar here. Okay?
Yeah.
And that's it. Okay? And it has all supplement facts and all that. And we've made it from selling at mybrainrestore.com, and now we're on Amazon. So now we have an Amazon. So, we're up there selling, and now we have 6 countries ordering, different people from countries now ordering. So it's amazing, how you can retire, yet you still have the spunk. It's all about, learning business, and that's what this show is all about. You you have that focus on how do you get over these humps and stuff. And there were situations there where we were putting ads in the local paper. In my case, I'm right near Washington, D.C., so it was the Washington Post, which was huge. It had very expensive advertising, even back then. And we had a big ad, told everything we did and everything for programming. Never got a call. And I told the person that was in charge, I said, I want you to change the ad to a smaller ad, and I want you to put in expert programmers and our phone number. And they were like opposed to this. This is the advertising people at the Post. They were like, that's dumb. You're just wasting your money. You're not telling what even your company name is. I said, they don't care. Why do they care? They're just looking for expert programmers. So just put it the way I want it. Nothing, no name, no nothing, just a phone number. They didn't even know who they were calling. They didn't have a clue. So the phone started ringing. And the people we got were very angry. And this was the best part. Okay, they'd call up and go, oh, you think you're experts, huh? And that's the way they'd come at you. And they'd go like, well, I got this problem. And it's this and that. And, I'm this company or this association or whatever downtown, right? And they challenge you. They like, you think you guys can come in here and fix this problem? I'm like, yeah, I do. When can we meet? Tomorrow. Okay, we'll be there. I got in the every time I got in the door and every time I closed the deal, every single time. And the Post never understood, that ad, but how simplistic it was. But when sometimes you look at business, sometimes it's just that simple. It doesn't have to be overcomplicated if you get your point across. And I put that we were the best and they wanted to challenge the best. That's fine. I'm up to the challenge.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. I think your story just speak volumes on audacity. Yeah, just go all out and get your hands dirty. Do the real thing other than fussing about getting the degree, getting the paperwork, whereas not getting the experience. And it's really amazing just hearing it. Every step of just you diving into it was really inspiring, I must say. Yeah,
Yeah,
amazing.
and the people we had that worked with us and stuff, our programmers, they were incredibly sharp. They were a great team. They don't always work well together, but after we got done and everything, and for years we did all this, and eventually I retired from it. I mean, a number of those people went on to work for some of the largest companies in the world, doing work for them, and they're huge. And there's some of them are in such top secret areas I can't even talk about.
Yeah.
But and now in doing this, business, trying to learn at my age and things like that to do that. Although I must say the product has helped a lot. The My Brain Restore has helped greatly, in making me more focused and keeping an eye on things and stuff like that. But right now we're growing so rapidly, it's hard to keep up with it because I've got orders coming from Amazon. I got orders coming from our website. We have international challenges now, people wanting us to ship in different places. And of course, customs are all over. America's pissing off everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like getting poked in the eye. And, we have to deal with that constantly, but people want the product. And they know that there's not many resources they can go to. And I post all my medical information on the website. I put it all up there for people to see. I put out a book that's free. As a matter of fact, I'll give you guys a bonus here. They can go click on mybrainrestore.com, click on the FAQ, click on free PDFs, and they can download my book for free. So that's something, a little secret, you guys.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So what kind of feedback or stories have you had from users and caregivers that impact you most?
Wow, I think a couple. One was very recent. I won't name the location, but it was another state far away. And the gentleman had been taking it for a short period of time, the My Brain Restore product, MBR, and he had Parkinson's. And he said, dude, it's like I'm better already. I can tell because the normal medicine I take, I don't have to take as much. And I keep getting better and better. And I called my doctor. He says, wow, yeah, it's quite a turnaround, with this Parkinson's, and he goes, what is that stuff? And he says, I don't know. It's a special kind of plant that it was studied in Japan, but they gave up on it because they couldn't turn it into a drug. So they sort of abandoned it. And I picked up on it and said, this makes a lot of sense to try to get this product out there. But it was hard to make. That jar right there, this jar right here requires 1,000.
Ooh.
If you can imagine the size of it. And they're they're like a peach, they got a stone in them and have to be cut in half and a lot of labor. But the point is it worked. And the point is that, when I got this, functioning and really working, it just took off. I mean, this gentleman just literally called me up and said, what, give me your full name and everything like that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy a hacker or what? But until he was a Parkinson's person, he'd already ordered the product. And then he said, well, I'm buying you tickets to fly down to my home and I'm paying for the, hotel. And then I'm going to have you meet some of my friends. And the next thing I know, I'm in a giant meeting with a bunch of investors. They're all interested in what we're doing, you know? And it just comes, you just like, this is unbelievable. So I spent 2 days literally nonstop. I mean, they were at dinner with me. They were everywhere. We wake up in the morning, back in another meeting, and they're just hammering away things to make it work better. And how can we do this? Asking a million questions. And jumping away from that, another story is just one of my customers calling me up and said, it was very emotional. The lady was a doctor, and I noticed some doctors ordering. You see the DR in front of their name before you ship it, and you're like, "Where's the doctor?" And this doctor um, said she walked down a trail behind her house. It was like a woods trail, with rocks and things like that.
Yeah.
And she had Parkinson's, and she had to hold on to her husband's hand as she walked down that trail. She said, after a month of taking the product, I let go of my husband's hand.
Mm.
And I walked down that trail by myself, with him beside me, because I was a little worried about falling, but I didn't. I made it all the way, and I didn't hold his hand. And the first thing I said, because I'm always this way, I said, I'm sorry I broke you guys up. You hold
Amazing, amazing, amazing. Thank you so much. This is really amazing, Douglas. So, for
yeah.
families supporting someone with memories or movement challenge, what practical daily support or habits do you believe matter most beyond any product?
Well, I mean, the product that I have, the My Brain Restore product, essentially a product that supports the glymphatic system. The
Yeah.
glymphatic system in the brain was only discovered in 2012. So it's extremely new in medical science. I
Mm.
mean, to find something new, in the body that no one noticed, until 2012 is pretty weird. But a Danish scientist actually noticed that. He got involved in it, and he called it, instead of the lymphatic system, he added the G to it, and it's the
Yeah.
glymphatic system. Now, what our product does when you put the two reports together, you start to realize that's what it's working on. It's clearing that up. And to prove that, there was a blood test I could do, which shows the amyloid beta ratio in your blood. And I took that test in 2023 because I was starting to get Alzheimer's. So I repeated it just a few months ago, on October 13th. And here was the weird thing. On Google, it says you cannot reverse that number. Once it goes bad, it doesn't get better. That's it. You're done.
Mm.
My doctor would not reorder the test because they said, your insurance company's not going to let me pay for a test that can't be reversed. And I said, I want it. But I'm the kind of person who doesn't sit still, so I called 10 doctors. Eventually, I got an online doctor, paid them the fee because all they wanted is the money. And they said, sure, I'll order it. Yeah, sure, I'll order your test. I don't care. And they ordered it. Yeah, I got 10% better. So I proved that, in fact, the amyloid beta that was in my head, which is really with Alzheimer's, is moving out and going into the bloodstream where it can be broken down. And that's key. So I had perfect proof that the product would work, and I keep doing that. Now I plan to keep doing more blood work and everything to hold my position. We're also asking people to, that are doing this now, or getting in programs with us, are putting everything down. They're filming themselves, like before and after videos. They all have a phone, or their families have a phone. I said, do that and, send it to us. We want to know. So one thing we do is really stay in really close contact with our customers. We put our phone number up there. We answer all the emails. We take care of them. And that's something you don't get out of a lot of companies. But for us, that's important.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you so much, Mark. It's really, really amazing hearing your stories and how you actually craft a purpose with it after suffering from all the illness. Yeah, it's really amazing. So, looking at your journey overall, lastly, what did these health battles teach you about persistence? purpose, and using adversity to build something meaningful?
Wow. Well, the first person to teach me about persistence was a very famous person. I had the opportunity to meet him. My boss knew him. He was Norman Vincent Peale, and he wrote the book, The Power of Positive
Yeah,
Thinking.
yeah,
Yeah. You're familiar with the book, right?
yeah.
But what he did in a seminar I was in, and I got to sit up there, and he just basically looked to the crowd and he said, I want everyone in here to try to stand up. And there was a lot of confusion in the room, and everyone looked around at each other, and half stood up, and the other half just kept sitting down because they didn't understand the question. And he said, no, 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 you don't understand. I'm asking for everyone to try to stand up. And then some people sat down and some other people stood up. Nobody really got what he was getting across. He said, yes, let me teach you something right now. There's no such word as try. You either do it or you don't. You can't try.
Mm.
And that was the key element that was in my brain. I learned that when I was 18 years old, and it was amazing.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
not as much. I was wondering where the energy was coming from, the audacity and everything. I just know that, yeah, it was not about trying. It was all about just doing. And that was really amazing. Yeah, thank you so much, Mark. So Mark, for my audience who want to connect with you, how can they reach out to you and where's the best platform?
best platform is mybrainrestore.com. So it's mybrainrestore and then .com. That's the best place. We put a lot of information up there, a lot of data people can download, read the FAQs, read my journey, all that before they even decide to buy anything. So, but always contact us. Our phone number's up there. They can email us. There's an area they can leave comments or talk to us.
Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you for sharing your stories, your research journey, and the perspective on persistence and innovation through adversity. For listeners who want to learn more about Mark's work, you can visit mybrainstore.com. The link is going to be on the show notes. And if this episode gave you values, share with someone who may benefit from it, this conversation. It's really a pleasure and an honor having you on the show,
Absolutely.
Mark.
It's fun. I love
Yeah,
it.
thank you.